All right, welcome everybody to another paddle review. Tonight we're going to be talking about the Selkirk Amped Maxima, the Morgan Evans model. But before we do, let's when you think of the land down under, Australia, what do you think of? Maybe you think of some of these things. Hippie trailhead full of zombie. Jesse is a friend. You know he's been a good friend of mine. The devil inside, the devil inside. Every single one of us, the devil inside. Yes, those are all great things I think of when I think of Australia. But there's somebody else that I think of, and it's our special guest tonight. Let's add him right now. There is one Morgan Evans.
G'day, mate. How are you?
When I think of the land down under, I think of Morgan Evans. I don't even think about those bands. Did you hear any of that stuff, Morgan?
I caught the tail end there. Very impressive.
Okay. Tonight we're going to talk about the new Maxima, the Amped Maxima, and we have the man right here that has his signature on the paddle, which he hopefully has with him. There it is, right there. So what better person to help to discuss this paddle with than the man himself. So thank you very much, Morgan, for joining us. You have quite an extensive background. I know you started playing tennis a while ago. I think you've only been playing pickleball for about 4 years. Is that right?
Yes. So it'll be coming up 4 years in February, March. It'll be 4 years. Yeah.
And obviously you're originally from Australia. How long have you been in this country?
Just over 4 years. I think I arrived November 2013.
Okay, nice. And you know, you've won a lot of medals recently. I know you got a silver at the Florida State Championships in men's doubles. Who were you playing that with?
That was with Mr. Ty McGuffin, the machine.
Ty McGuffin, and you're also kind of coaching him now, aren't you?
Yeah. We started. I started coaching him about 6 or 7 months ago, just before the Bend tournament, I believe it was. Yeah. He was looking.
So you're taking full credit for all his recent medals. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. He will agree that he gets no credit, and I deserve the vast majority of the prize money. No, he.
Yeah, I'm wondering if this is going to start a new trend now with player coaches, or players that were great players taking younger players under their wing.
Look, I think the game needs to head there. The beauty of pickleball is with timeouts and the time in between games, you can have a real impact, and the person often who's on the court who has a huge amount of emotional investment in the outcome can't always see things in the same light that an impartial observer can see.
That's interesting. I guess we'll have to wait and see if that catches on. But if Ty continues to play the way he is, you may be getting more requests for coaching help.
Well, Fortunately, unfortunately, I guess, as the Selkirk head coach, I'm restricted to Selkirk players. So,
Right. Now, speaking of the Selkirk, we're here tonight to talk about the Maxima. Now, I have the brand new light version here. Somebody, unfortunately, is borrowing my Morgan Evans signature model. Morgan has the official Morgan Evans paddle with him there. And the light one is the same shape. It's just basically a half-ounce lighter.
Yeah.
But let me just give the specs real quick for everybody. The Maxima specs, the weight is 7.6 to 8.2 ounces. The grip is 4.25, just your normal standard grip. The grip length is 5 1/4 right here. The paddle, now this is very unique, is actually 17 inches from tip to bottom. So this is the maximum length that you can get on a paddle. And because of that, it's going to have to be a little narrower. So you have a 6 7/8 inch wide face. It's a little more rounded than the traditional blade paddles. And it's got that fiberglass face on it, the composite face. Selkirk calls it FiberFlex. So, and it's got the X5 polymer honeycomb core. And like all the Amped paddles, it's got that that thickness to it, which is very new to paddles now. And it seems to be providing a lot more control with power. I'm not sure if it's because of the thickness, but it seems to be really all the Amped paddles have that thicker thickness to it, and it really seems to be working well. And one last thing, these paddles, they come in a couple different colors. I got some on my screen there. Comes in purple, green, red, and a blue, just like this. So now that that's out of the way, Morgan, can you just go into a little bit of how you came to start working with Selkirk and what you guys talked about when you were coming up with your signature paddle?
Sure. So I got in touch with the Selkirk brothers, Rob and Mike Barnes, back in, I think it was July, August time in 2016. At the time, I was using the Encore blade. That guy here. I've got my rundown of all the paddles I've used here. Just a good little trip down memory lane.
Was the blade your first long skinny paddle?
No, the Pop, the Brian Jensen.
Oh, the Pop.
The Pop
Okay.
paddle, and I love.
Oh, the Jensen. Yeah. He makes those custom paddles, right?
Yeah. It's that was a classic. That was the first time. That was my first love, really.
I think he was the one that was the first one to come up with the long paddle concept. Is that right?
Yeah, I think he was, and it was because of his wife Pamela. I believe she had something happened to her hip, or there was an injury there, and her mobility was limited for a moment. So she really wanted something with some extra reach. So he, like a good husband, he built it for her.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So if Pamela never hurt her hip, there might not be any Maxima today.
Yeah, don't quote me on the hip thing. I think it's a hip, but
it sounds good. Let's just
we'll go with that. Fair enough. Yes.
So go ahead.
I've been using the blade for quite some time. Then Selkirk reached out. I had used a few Selkirk paddles from my time up in Seattle over 2014 and 15, and I liked what I felt, but they didn't have anything in the long variety. But they saw that there's a good chance the game was had room for that kind of paddle, and they thought that it might not be a bad idea to get someone on board to help promote the paddle and perhaps put a signature on there. And I was lucky enough that it was myself.
So when you started working with them, developing this Maxima paddle, what were some of the things you were trying to get out of it that you didn't get with the previous blade?
Well, I did want it to be slightly wider. the blade. The blade is the full 17 inches long as well, but it's only 6.5 inches wide. And I felt that combined with the kind of the normal thickness of the original Maxima. So there's the blade there. The original Maxima, they're basically the same width. I think that's a 1/2 inch, which was the norm back then. I wanted something that gave a slightly bigger sweet spot, some more stability on the outside, the outside of the dead center of the paddle. But I didn't want to give up the kind of speed you can get through the air. There's something wonderful about how quickly you can get through the ball with a skinny paddle. And we all know what you give up in terms of the defensive capabilities of hitting balls on the outside of the sweet spot. But I was prepared to and wanting to play an aggressive game, driving a lot of third balls and hitting a lot of hard serves. So for me, it was a worthwhile sacrifice.
So for your game, you feel like the advantages that you get with this shaped paddle far outweigh any disadvantage you might have in the blocking area or something or other areas.
I do, I really do, and certainly since the new model came out, the Amped with the X5 FiberFlex core, it's made such an improvement to the sweet spot of the paddle that I find it hard to believe how I ever got by with the older one. Which is not to say that if you own one of the older paddles, that it's not a wonderful paddle. It's great. I still have a special spot in my heart for it. But I would certainly recommend giving one of these new ones a go.
So yeah, that brings us to the new Maxima, the new Amped Maxima. What did you notice right off the bat when you got the new Amped paddle in your hand? You start hitting around with it. What was the first thing you noticed? The first difference you noticed between that and the old paddle?
I think like everybody who goes from the original versions to the new Amped design, it's the sweet spot, the size of the sweet spot. You get this instant feeling like I can't miss. The touch you get on the ball from each contact. You kind of it lulls you into believing that every shot you're hitting is in the perfect spot when in effect, obviously, it's probably not. But the added inertia that comes from the thicker core, I really feel like that's what gives you the larger sweet spot and the more feel. One of the other things I noticed was I was having some real wrist problems. I have long since been trying a very ambitious inside-out backhand volley shot, and it was causing some issues with my wrist. But once I switched to this one, it was absorbing a lot of the vibrations, and I haven't had any wrist issues since. So
yeah, it makes sense that the thicker core is going to absorb more vibration. When I first started playing with the Amped paddles, I saw that they were thicker, but I didn't really feel like that thickness. Obviously there's a point where it's going to be too thick and it's just going to feel weird.
Yes.
But I didn't have any adjustment period at all going from the old. I used to play with the S2 going to the new S2. Like you said, I noticed right away a bigger sweet spot. I also noticed it was a little quieter.
Yeah.
I noticed that it had a little less power, just a tad. Not enough to really matter. Very close, but just a little less power. But I felt like it had more of the mixture of control and power. And just depending on the input you gave the paddle, you put a hard swing on it, you're going to get a lot of power. And then when you're trying to dink really soft in the kitchen, it had that too. So I know everybody's chasing that elusive combination of power and control, but I think these new Amped paddles have nailed it almost better than anybody else.
Yes. I agree completely. It's that extra thickness. I remember dinking 3 or 4 shots with it, and knowing that I wouldn't have to go back. And I got on the phone immediately with Rob Barnes and said, "Is it approved? When is it approved? How long do I have to wait?
When can I have this?"
When can I have it?" They sent me a prototype, the different graphics. But yeah, no, I was in love straight away. So it was a welcome idea that I didn't have any real breaking in period to get used to the new paddle.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like it took everything from before and just built on it and made it better. So I'm not sure where they can go from here.
Yeah.
That leads me to an interesting question. If you could, if they come to you and we're going to do a Maxima Volume 3, and they want to know what changes you would like, would you suggest anything at all?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a curveball. I wasn't ready for that one. Wow. I suppose if they were to offer customers a different weight of edge guard. So one of the things that Ty McGuffin did with the previous model was he had a thicker, heavier edge guard. He wanted something closer to 9 ounces. And I think there are a lot of players that actually can wield that sort of weapon and do it well. And they're having to add lots of lead weight, lead tape at the top, which is something I like to do. I like to adjust the balance points of the paddle with some lead tape. But yeah, honestly, they've hit it out of the park with this one. I love the graphics. If you're out there and you're thinking of getting one of these Maximas, blue is certainly the name of the game. Just shameless plug there. Sorry, folks. But
so speaking of which, you actually put lead tape around the edge guard. You make yours. Ty's is 9 ounces.
I think the amped version he's got is similar to this, but the original one he used to have a much thicker edge guard, and that made his at least 8.5. I forget exactly how heavy it was, but yeah, I think the game needs to kind of embrace the heavier paddle. People, it seems like, for so long were enamored with around 7 to 7.5 ounces, and anything heavier, people believed that, oh, you get an injury of some kind. But
right.
I really feel like it's much more to do with the balance point of the paddle versus the weight of the paddle, and obviously technique plays a huge role in that.
Well, I mean, you got a lot of ex-tennis players. You know, tennis rackets are 12 ounces.
Yeah, exactly.
11 ounces. I mean, 7 or 8 or 9 or even 10 ounces should not really be a problem. But I think what a lot of people, at least I feel like when I get a paddle that's too heavy, it adds too much power. And that's why I feel like I don't need more weight. But what are the advantages that you see to adding more weight? Just easier power, or
well,
it doesn't take away any of the touch and the feel shots?
I guess look at it like this. If with extra weight, you're right, it can add more power, but it's up to you if you want to use it. Shortening backswings to control the ball more than, would you rather go around in an Enzo Ferrari and have the option of using 700 horsepower, but perhaps but knowing how to use 100 of it, versus a Toyota Corolla and having to redline it just to get 125 horsepower out of it?
Right. That's an excellent analogy. So you like having that power available?
Yeah, it's
when
it's on tap.
You just want to blast the heck out of the ball.
Yeah, for sure, exactly. And I think with the kind of spin and control that the paddle provides, it's really down to you how much of your maximum swing speed you want to employ. I feel like I do agree with you in a sense that with the original, when you catch it flush up here, and it's the perfect storm of technique, the bounce, the ball, and your position on the court. The kind of power you can put onto the ball might be a little more with the original, but I was only able to use that power, a tenth of the time, versus this guy, where I have the license to go after it much more because I trust the ball is going to stay in the court more often. Well, I don't know how often, but more often than not.
So you think, I know your game is definitely more of a power aggressive game. Do you think that's the type of player that the Maxima, somebody that wants to use this paddle, you think that's the ideal type of game to blend with this paddle? Or do you think it could work for different types of players?
Yeah, I do believe more so that it is an aggressive player's paddle. But I think everybody, when they get to a certain point in the game, they start to see more opportunities and more ways they can be using power, especially on serves. I've always felt that the serve was an area in the game where so many players it just looked like they were looking at the serve as a way to start the point. And I had always thought that I feel like we can do more with that. And if you have a paddle that can really supply some power, you can force shorter returns, and therefore you can drive more third balls, and you can build an aggressive game around it. And if you've got the kind of paddle in your hands that works for that strategy, even if you're not there yet, you'll find a way to get there.
So I know you play both singles and doubles. Have you ever thought about the concept of one paddle for singles and one paddle for doubles? And what do you think about that idea?
Yeah.
They're two very different games.
Indeed. I have seen some people that do that. I think Scott Moore uses one paddle for singles and one for doubles to good effect. I think it's fine if you have a similar weight. I think the weighting and the balance points, if those are similar enough in your standard shape for your doubles and your long skinny for singles, yeah, I see no reason why not. I wanted to really play enough singles and doubles with the one paddle, so I felt like it was an extension of my body more than a tool.
So you don't want to jeopardize that comfort you have with your paddle, that familiar feeling, by switching back and forth between paddles for singles and doubles. You like to have that same tool in your hand for both.
Yeah, I mean, the game is such a precise game that I feel like, for me personally, I'll have a better chance of success sticking with one paddle and really getting to know it.
Now, what other types of players you think would benefit from the Maxima, either the light one or the heavy one? Now, I know Selkirk offers a lot of different choices, so there's no reason to make believe that this paddle is going to be for everybody, because that's why they make a whole bunch of paddles, because one paddle is not for everybody. So the prototype for this paddle, would you suggest maybe like shorter players that don't have a lot of reach, maybe use the long paddles?
That's true. I mean, I'm not sure if you've met me. I'm actually around about 6'7". Often people confuse me for my brother, who's only 5'9".
I wasn't implying that you were one of those short people, Morgan.
Yeah, no, I'm just joking. No, I think
I know you're no Rozpetsky.
Yes, I've met Mr. Rozpetsky, and he's a tower of a man, and I'm a huge fan. So players, I think players who are looking for a little more reach in the lateral sense. So I go back to Brian and Pamela Jensen. When mobility has become an issue, then it's something that, as long as this, the maximum length you can have, 17 inches, that can keep you in the point. And there's a reasonable chance if mobility is a real issue, then if you're not likely to want to spend 30, 40 dinks around the kitchen line having to do get your 10,000 steps in before the first game is finished. Therefore, you're probably going to want to play an aggressive game and get as many points sorted out with big serves, big third balls, and being aggressive early. So that kind of player, I think, can really benefit from this paddle as well.
I think also transitioning tennis players, I think this feels a lot like a tennis racket. You know, when you swing it, it's got a lot of what's the word? Inertia.
Yeah.
I mean, you kind of feel it, the leverage you get with the longer paddle, which is similar to a tennis racket somewhat.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing I would look out for if I was somebody considering this paddle, if you have trouble blocking, I would kind of stay away from it. Stick with the wider shapes, maybe the S2 or the Epic. If blocking is a problem for you, you know, I would suggest maybe this is not the paddle for you. Do you agree with that?
Look, I can't deny it is a more difficult paddle to block with. Not impossible. And the way I look at it in two different ways. What you said previously about tennis players, I think absolutely true. One of the reasons why I went to long paddles in the beginning was the fact that I was still playing quite a lot of tennis and teaching tennis. And I realized that with that longer paddle, I could essentially use my same forehand and backhand swing from tennis and just port it over to pickleball. Whereas the more traditional shape paddles, that same shot was dipping too far into the net, and I'd have to really alter my technique. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to be able to use tennis to cross-train for my pickleball. But you're right, the blocking side of things is more difficult with this paddle. So it's something where if your dink game is good enough so that you're not getting attacked head to head too often, then this can really work well for you.
Yeah, that's a good point. If your game is such where you're not giving up a lot of balls that need to be blocked.
Yeah, exactly.
This would be a good paddle for you. If you find yourself popping the ball up a lot and having to, you know, play defense, be like a goalie, you want a widest paddle as possible. So, yeah. Do you? I'm just curious. Do you keep up with the new technologies out there? What the other paddle manufacturers are doing, or do you just focus on your game and just, you know, you got something you like now, or are you a paddle geek?
I actually, honestly, I very, very rarely, if ever, try any other paddle. I can't remember the last time I had another paddle in my hand. Apart from anything else, I'm scared someone will tell Selkirk if I'm seen with another paddle. I obviously do test out the other Selkirk.
They have eyes out there watching you.
Exactly. You never know. You never know who's watching, lurking in the shadows. I test out the other Selkirk paddles, obviously, and I'm always intrigued how they feel compared to the Maxima. And the feedback I've got, and what I kind of agree with as well, is it feels like the Amped Maxima and the Epic, the ones with the kind of the smaller surface area, really got a huge benefit, perhaps more so than the other ones, with the thicker core. You know, on a per square inch basis, they really increase the kind of density, and therefore the sweet spot relative to the size of the paddle feels much bigger.
Do you think that so how important do you think it is to choose the right paddle for your game? It sounds like I know what the answer is going to be, but do you encourage people to maybe, you know, you found the thing that works for you, so now you're just putting your head down, you're working on your game, you're sticking with it. Do you encourage other people to maybe try out a bunch of different styles and see what works for them?
To a limit, to a certain extent. Um,
Right.
I would say until you're really a competitive 4-0, 4-5, and beyond kind of player, there's an argument to be said that it's probably not the arrow, it's the archer.
Right, right.
Uh,
I agree. I think when you're starting out, you're 3-0, your first year or so, your first 6 months, just get a middle of the road paddle like the Epic.
yeah,
Just the weight, I think, is the most important thing
yeah,
for a beginner.
yeah, I'd agree.
Get something that feels not too heavy, not too light, and if it's a traditional shape, it'll work for you. It'll pull all the shots off that you need to make.
For sure.
And I agree, don't get too caught up in it. I think the better players are the ones that get into the fine tuning aspect of it. You guys have to be so precise that a little change can make a lot of difference. Where
Yeah.
a rec 3-0 player, they wouldn't even know the difference.
Yeah, I felt a big difference dropping down from 8.4 ounces to 8.1. I felt like hand speed was a marketable change for me, a marked change. So, and I didn't think I would. I thought, I'm probably not even going to feel much of a difference. But yeah, so it is a very precise art with these paddles.
Okay, I think we gave the folks out there a lot of information on the new Maxima. People out there, check out the Morgan Evans signature paddle if you like 8 ounces and above, or you could do like Ty does and add a pound or two to it. And if you like the lighter paddles, if you're maybe a lady that's a little vertically challenged, you might want to check this out, see if it works for your game. If not, Selkirk's got a whole bunch of other models that will work for your game. Morgan, is there anything that you want to talk about that you got coming up? You're doing clinics, or you're teaching, or
So
what's your next tournament coming up?
the next tournament I'm playing in is the Lakes tournament here, which Marcin Rospetsky is running. It's in Palm Desert. There's a bit of prize money there. It looks like it's attracted a big draw. Then the US Open after that one will be the next major one. But at the moment, I'm really focusing on working with the brothers to develop a good coaching program, and help the Selkirk players as best as possible to reach their full potential. At the same time, we're trying to grow the stable of players that we've got. So we're always looking for fresh young talents that really fit the mold of the Selkirk family. And it looks like we're growing steadily. The new prize pool program is really helping to attract new talent and existing talent that's already competing.
Sounds good. I also noticed that you signed up for our tournament here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
In May.
Yeah.
So looking forward to coming to watch you guys play in person. You're going to be playing with Marcin?
Yeah, playing with Marcin in the men's and Gigi Garvin in the mixed.
Okay, I was excited to see that all the big guns are coming. You got
Really huge.
you got Yates, you got Ben Johns, you got Aspen Kern, you got the Beard, I think.
Beard.
You got
Wouldn't be a tournament without the Beard.
all the big names. So it's nice to see them, all you big guns coming to Atlanta, and I think that's about it. I want to thank Morgan for taking the time out to talk to us. It's been very interesting. A lot of good insight you gave us, little things that most people wouldn't know. And I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope they go out and try the Maxima. And check out my website if you get a chance. It's www.pickleballpaddlereviews.net. And if you want to buy this paddle, go to the Selkirk website. And if you use my promo code Jack10, you'll get a discount on that. And I think that's about it. I have an article coming out in the new Pickleball magazine that comes out in January, which will help you guys help you how to decide on how to pick the right paddle. I just go over all the little components to it and how to take a process that could be kind of confusing to people and make it simple. So hope you guys check that out. So once again, Morgan, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Jeff.
And see you on tour. We'll see you when you come to Atlanta.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you.